If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
Boy, am I happy we had Jennifer on the show.
Yeah, this was actually really interesting because she is a super fast talker.
She's a firecracker.
Full of energy. Mm-hmm. And we almost let her get away with what this whole podcast ended up turning into, which she almost glazed right over.
Some of the most interesting stories ever.
Right. And I'm so glad that I stopped her and made her go back because it turned into an extremely interesting podcast. She's got such a great story about how she landed into fitness because that wasn't even her background. And the girl's been really very successful. Has a great attitude, and was such an absolute pleasure just to meet.
Now she's a fitness author, and we talked a little bit about fitness, but we really talked about, I guess, just how to build a business, the attitude and motivation behind it. Her stories were excellent. She's a great storyteller. Some of them are unbelievable, except that we know people in common, so we know she's not lying.
Can vouch them, yeah.
Yeah, so. Awesome girl. Like, she's one of those few people you meet and right away you like her.
Yeah, it just goes to show how, far you can get with hard work and tenacity, which is really the whole message of this podcast that she kept driving in, was just how tenacious she was.
Yeah, you'll like this episode. It's a lot of fun. Now, if you want to check her out, her name is Jennifer Cohen. You can check her out on Instagram at @TheRealJenCohen. Cohen is spelled Cohen. Her website is jennifercohen.com. She wrote a book called Badass Body Goals. She also wrote an older book called, I think, Strong is the New Skinny. And she has a new podcast coming soon. We don't know what the name is yet. We think she might
We're supposed to decide somehow for her.
We think the name might be Jenspiration, but she might change it. Not quite sure.
Know.
But I think
get a poll going for that.
Yeah, I think she'll do really good. Before we get into the interview, though, these are the final hours. So if you're listening to this right when this episode drops, it's the final hours for the MAPS Starter Program launch. Now, MAPS Starter is the program for beginners, for people who are deconditioned, people who just want to get into resistance training but reap all the benefits. It's a workout you do at home with dumbbells and a physio ball. The program is MAPS Starter, and it's $20 off right now for the launch. Plus, you get a free t-shirt and 1 year of access to our private forum. Here's what you got to do if you want to enroll. Go to mapsstarter.com, MAPSSTARTER.com, and use the code STARTER20, that's starter and the number 20 without a space, for $20 off. It's a great gift also. It's good for people who you want to get them into working out, like for your parents, your kids, your significant other who may not be training. Great place to start. If you want to check out our other programs, you can go to mapsfitnessproducts.com. And that's it. Here we are talking to Jen Cohen. I forgot how much energy you have, Jennifer. I remember when we got on the phone, and we were back and forth, and you're like, I forgot to tell you, I'm ADD. I have so much energy.
Oh, did I say? Yeah, right. I did say that.
You did say that. You do have a.
I would have thought she's
a spark.
I would have thought she's 25, except for the Cindy Crawford reference.
Well, thank you. I'm for sure coming back now after that.
Snap.
Well, first of all, I think you guys have probably just as much. And are we doing this already? Did it start?
Oh, it's happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I would imagine you'd have just as much energy though, because I feel like when you work out, and obviously all of us work out, it gives you actually more energy versus less energy, which people
You looked at
think.
me a certain way right there.
Yeah. You know what, though? I think you probably always had a lot of energy, and the exercise just made it turbo.
Well, I think the exercise helped focus and rein me in a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But but I always did. I always actually had a lot of energy. Like I'm not able to ever just sit still. Ever. Like even now I'm going to be fidgeting just because it's like an uncomfortable thing for me. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to properly relax, which is, kind of a problem, and it's a blessing and a curse, I guess.
Right.
You can get a lot done, you can be extra productive, but sometimes it's good to kind of turn it off and chill.
Now, how did you get into the fitness space? How did that all start for you? And then tell us a little bit about your journey through the fitness, industry of fitness.
Okay, well, I guess that's a two-prong answer. I'm going to say that because what you just said, the ADD for sure was something where I needed to exert a lot of energy or release a lot of energy. So I look to athletics or fitness as that way. But really, if I'm being honest, the other side to that was I come from a Jewish I'm Jewish, and like our whole social environment was always based around food. So in order to counterbalance the amount of calories and food I would like intake on a regular basis, I looked to fitness as a way to kind of to counterbalance it basically.
Now, were you like, because I started working out because I was a really skinny kid.
Yeah.
Were you chubby? Was that what you started? Or?
I wouldn't say I was chubby, but I was predisposed. I wasn't chubby ever. I'm not going to say I was, but I was zuftig. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I have to be extra cognizant of what I eat because I have the tendency to, it's like that 5-7 pound thing, you know, 5 pounds less I can look extremely different with being 5 pounds less, and I can look frumpy 5 or 7 pounds heavier to being super, super fit and athletic looking 5 pounds leaner.
Okay.
Right?
So how old were you then when you started in the working out? You must have been pretty young then.
I was always athletic, but I really started taking fitness seriously probably when I was around 17, 18. And then it just kind of became like my way of life. It became my lifestyle, where it became so habitual. If I didn't do it, it was uncomfortable.
Did you know right away, like, I love this is what I want to do for a living?
No, absolutely not. Not at all. Fitness was not something that I was ever going to think of as an actual career. That was just not even it was not even in my brain. I was conditioned as a kid. My education was extremely important to my family. Everyone in my family are doctors, lawyers, accountants, very typical for the Jewish, for people who are Jewish like me. And then, because education. So I did that route. I went to school. I went to get an MBA. I was actually working as 19. I fast tracked and I got my first job at the Toronto Raptors, which was like the franchise Canadian team. And I was very young. I was the youngest person working for them. That was pre-business school. And I did very well. When my first year of working there, I went back to school. A year and a half, I decided to go back to school to get my business degree. They held the job for me. So in my brain, my trajectory was going to be working, but on the business executive side in the sports world, never as someone who's going to be doing what I'm doing now. Cut to after that, after school, I got poached by BMG Music, which was a record label, to come work for them in the marketing team. So I actually did not go back to the sports world, and I pivoted into the music space. Again, completely not what I'm doing now.
Well, these are prestigious companies that you're talking about.
Yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, obviously you're doing something right to get that kind of, what are you doing to get the attention of like the Toronto Raptors and a company like BMG? What's going on?
I was always, to your point, Sal, I think part of where my energy was channeled, because I always had a lot of energy, I was very tenacious and very determined. And I would use that energy. I basically honed that energy for good in a sense, where I really, if I wanted something, or if I was very, very determined to kind of have a goal and work to achieve it. So I figured at that time, why would I settle for the middle? I might as well try to go for, the highest. And I like to, I like to win, just as my personality, right? So I did well, and so I think when you work hard, I think you do get recognized. Work ethic does get recognized, and I always had a very strong work ethic. So when I got the job at BMG, same thing kind of happened. I was working for a record label. You'll appreciate this reference considering our ages, but it was like Britney Spears. Hit baby, hit me one more time. Do you have
no idea. Adam,
Hello.
Adam's actually a super fan.
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
He's got posters and everything.
Okay.
Not even exaggerating.
Okay, well then you'll appreciate that, because I helped launch that album.
Wow. Wow.
And then that was, the Christina Aguilera Genie in a Bottle, Usher, like it was like that.
My 1 degree of separation was just 10 years late.
Man,
Fuck.
where were you? Yeah.
Fuck.
I mean, it's better late than never, they say, right? So you never know. I may be able to hook you up So that was basically my whole trajectory was all now in the music space. Not until I got a job offer in LA with Sony Music. That's how I left. So, oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys, I should have mentioned
Wait,
this.
I want to back up your. Wait, let me back up your ADD for a second.
Yeah.
Here. I want because you're just flying.
Back to Britney. Back to Britney.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go back.
You're
there.
flying
Yeah,
over
100%.
things that are really interesting to me. For example, you get poached from the Raptors, already a prestigious, badass job to be involved in. What's that phone call or poaching process like? Does someone just? I mean, how'd that go down?
Hi,
So,
this is the Raptors.
Yeah. So this is what if you want to go back that far, I didn't realize, I was trying to kind of give you the concise version.
Well, I appreciate the concise when people have boring stories, but that's an interesting
Yeah.
story to me. The Raptors are I'm a big basketball fan. That's a big deal. I'm also a music guy, so that's a big deal
Okay,
to
so
me.
then you'll appreciate this. So Isaiah Thomas hired me. So at the time,
Oh my God, you weren't going to mention that?
See, I was just letting it glaze right over that, right?
there's a lot of other stories.
Oh, another one of my heroes.
I should actually kind of I should really back up
Shit.
then. I
Yeah.
think this will really kind of, you'll appreciate
Then
this.
Magic Johnson came in, and then Michael Jordan's over here.
Yeah. Well, let me back it up. Okay, so I'm Canadian. I
Okay.
think this will kind of, I'm from a small town called Winnipeg, Manitoba. Okay, so let me just kind of give you I'm going to give you the evolution of all of this, this tenacity, right? Besides just having an extreme amount of energy. So when I was living in Winnipeg and I was still young, I had a dream of being a Much Music VJ. So do you guys ever watch MTV?
Yes.
Okay, so you remember those VJs that were on MTV?
Yeah. Yep.
So we had this
Carson Daly and all that?
yeah, like
Kinda?
a Carson
Yeah.
Daly. Okay, so in Canada, where I'm from, we had this equivalent called Much Music, which was the exact same thing. Okay, so I was a young girl and I really wanted I was I really want to be a VJ. So I thought I'm going to send in a demo tape to Much Music and see if I can get the job. But I didn't think, okay, I'm not just going to send in a demo tape like every other person. I have to make it unique and special because that way it will get looked at, right? So at the time, Keanu Reeves was in Winnipeg because he was performing Hamlet. Now check it out, because you'll understand this. It was right after Speed. Remember the movie Speed?
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves performing him. I'm listening.
But this is why he was performing it. Let me tell you why. Because
Just thou.
yeah, well, I'll tell you. First of all, I have a special place in my heart for him because what he did for me. So I cannot let anyone.
He's awesome. I'm a huge fan.
Malign him in my presence.
Oh no, he's awesome.
So it was right after Speed, and Speed was a massive hit, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It basically catapulted him to the sexiest man alive, right? And he was always a very serious. He thought of himself as a serious actor. I know. Just bear with me at the story.
Yeah.
So because he was never really motivated by money. He was always motivated by the art and kind of that stuff. He thought, I'm going to do this stint in Winnipeg and do Hamlet. So you can imagine the media frenzy when Keanu Reeves comes to a small town like Winnipeg. And at the time, Hard Copy, Current Affair, remember all these?
Oh, yeah.
They're all there, following his every move. This crowd's crazy. And in my brain, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get Keanu Reeves to be on my demo tape. And I said this to my friends and to my mom and my dad. And they're like, oh God, okay, yeah, okay, good luck. And one night he was performing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go stand outside the door where he leaves the building, and I'm gonna go and let this kind of and I'm gonna go ask him if he wanted to. This is kind of one of those ignorant type of youthful, dreams that you have, right? I'm gonna go stand and wait for him and ask him to be in my demo tape, and everyone laughed at me and thought I was crazy and blah blah blah. Well, cut to one night when he was performing at 10 o'clock in the evening when he was finished, I went to the back door where he was performing in the theater, and there was literally droves of people, all the media, crazy people. And I was waiting and waiting, and I took a girlfriend with me actually, and she got super annoyed. She's like, I'm not doing this anymore. He's not going to come. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. So she left me by myself. 15 minutes later, he walks out the door with all these people around, and I literally scurried through the crowds of people, literally scurrying through, pushing people to either way. and I like poked him on his jacket or like tugged his jacket. And he says to me, he's like, yeah, if you want an autograph, you're going to have to wait. And I'm like, autograph? No, I don't want your autograph. I'm like, I actually have a project that I need your help with. I'm trying to be a VJ for Much Music, and I need your help. And he's like, huh? And like everyone's tugging at him. He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, I'm like, the autograph's not going to do me any good. I need you to actually like physically help me. And he's like, he was so perplexed. He couldn't, because I was very serious. Like, right. I was like looking him dead in the eye. I wasn't like letting anybody like get around, and I was like very, very, very like, I was just very determined. And he's like, well, give me your phone number and I'll call you. And I was like, I'm like, are you really going to call me, or are you just going to say that and then you're going to like really let someone down who's like a teenager? He's like, well, just give me your phone number. So I was like, all right. So I asked some girl for some pen and paper, and she gave me like a gum wrapper. And I didn't have a pen, but some girl had like a like one of those eyeliners. Yeah. So I wrote my eyeline like in an eyeliner, my phone number, and like on a like an old gum wrapper, and I gave it to him. And I'm like, are you really going to call me? He's like, yes, I'll call you. But look, there's too many people. I can't deal with this right now. So I'm like, all right. So I go home. I tell my family. I tell my friends. They're all like, oh my God, as if he's going to call. I go to school the next day, and all my friends are like, they're told other people. Then people were like teasing me, like, oh yeah. Did Keanu call you yet? You know, like, you're such a loser. You really think he's going to call? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And I was like, day 2 comes by, and still like, oh, did Keanu call? And I was like, no, I guess he didn't call, but you never know. And I go home that second day, and my mom's like, did you check your answering machine? Because at the time you have answering machines.
Oh, yeah. The gum wrapper gave that away.
And I press play on my answering machine, and I hear, hello? And I hear this guy being like, hello? And then I hear my mother, you know, when someone answers the phone at the end, like, you know, and the machine picks it up. I hear, hello, is Jennifer there? And basically it was him. He was like, my mom's like, who's this? Who's calling? Like, so agitated. And he's like, my name is Keanu, and I'm calling for you know, maybe your daughter, or. And she's like, who's this? Who's calling? And like, it was on my voice. I still have the answering machine message.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, that's epic.
And my mom was like, well, she's at school, you know, leave a message. And she hangs up, and she's like, call back. And then like, you hear a click, and you hear him being, hello. So he hangs up the phone. He calls back again. And he's like, hi, Jennifer, this is Keanu. We met the other night, and sorry it's taking me a little bit to call you back, blah, blah, blah. I was like freaking. Okay. So then I like obviously call him back. He gave me his phone number, and we arranged for him to come over to my house. I was going to pick him up in my mother's Cutlass Supreme, and he's going to come over to my house, and I'm going to make a demo tape. I asked him, I said, you know, I was very, very serious. I was going to make a demo tape with him on it, and I was going to send it into Much Music. So what he did was, and this is why you cannot make fun of him, he postponed, because he was leaving town to go shoot a movie. He postponed the shoot by 24 hours to come over to my house and help me. So I had like...
Dude, I like this guy even more
right?
now.
So I had 3 friends, so amateur, like in different corners of my living room with like you know, little cameras, and I was going to edit it myself together. And literally, like, I went to pick up Keanu in my mom's Cutlass Supreme at the hotel he was staying at, drove him back to my house, okay? Like, my mother gave him cookies and coffee and blah, blah, blah. And just like how we're sitting here, I sat with him, and I literally interviewed him, like, looking back at it, and I have the videos, it was so ridiculous. But why I'm telling you the story, and it's probably super long, and you're going to edit it because it's like, you know.
We won't.
Not at all.
It's epic.
Yeah.
Is that at that moment, it taught me that you never know what can happen unless you try, number one, and that determination and tenacity are truly two of the most important things for success in life. Because what that did was, because of my tenacity, my determination, and my, you know, not caring what the outcome is. I'm like, you know what? The worst that can happen is this guy says no, right? What's the worst? Meanwhile, what happened was he said yes. So what that also gave me was the self-confidence in myself, to like believe in myself, to always push through and always go after something. So like, as amateur as that video was, right? And and the story was so crazy, right? Like, every magazine and everyone was calling me after because they couldn't believe this megastar from Hollywood came to some little girl's house in Winnipeg, right? It was just like with my mom, it was completely platonic, right?
Sure.
Just like to really help her, like help me out. And my mom said to him on the camera, right, on the VHS tape, like, why are you here? Like, why are you helping my daughter, you know? And he's like, because there was a fire in her eyes that was so strong that you can't say no. So I feel like
awesome.
when you have that fire, like that you will be successful. You just have to persevere and you have to go for it. So because of that, I believed in myself enough to move to Toronto, which again was a big step for a little girl from Winnipeg, and go after the top. Because at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? I strive for the top. I end up where? Right? Maybe a little bit less, but you never know. Mm-hmm. But with that tape, I sent in that tape and I almost got the job. I became runner-up between me and this other girl, and the other girl ended up getting it, but I would never have gotten that close, right? And it was literally because the first thing they said when they called me was like, how the hell did you get Keanu Reeves on your tape? Like, don't you live in Winnipeg? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I sure do. But if I can get Keanu, you can imagine like all the other interviews I can get.
She is a closer, I mean, tell you.
I am a closer.
Man.
And so I thought, okay, I'm not going to do this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get a job and blah, blah, blah. I had to finish college, whatever. And then I thought, the NBA, there's going to be a new franchise. I want to work for the best, and I also want to do that. So I finagled my way through meeting this one, networking. Everyone's a conduit to someone else, and then I ended up meeting the owners of the Raptors through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and he was like, "Wow, this girl." He's like, wow. He's like, this girl's pretty tenacious. And he led me into like Isaiah. He's like, you should talk to Isaiah because he's going to want to, this whole whatever. And I met with Isaiah and he hired me on the spot. He's like, if you can get this far, and it wasn't family connections or it wasn't anything like that. It was just my own pure tenacity. And, he hired me on the spot and I got the job.
That is such an amazing.
I'm so glad I made you.
I know. You're just gonna just fast forward your way through that.
I know. I didn't know how much. I didn't know really what you wanted me to focus on. So
well,
I mean, I would like.
I'm an NBA fan, so right away when you say an NBA team, my ears perk up right away. So that's already curious. And then I'm also a music person, so for you to get into BMG, so there's got to be more to that story.
Oh yes. I got you now. Yeah. Well, yeah. So like I said, I was just giving you the Keanu Reeves background because it really was like my launch pad for the self-confidence, for the
what a great lesson.
What recognition that like anything's possible if you just you go after and persevere and have have tenacity.
Now, from there, you went from there to music.
Right. So then I went back. So when I was at the Raptors, I left eventually to go back to business school. And then while I was in business school, what happens is you do internships, right? Like, so I had an internship at IMG, which was, it's a management company. Now it's much bigger than it was always big, but they've bought a bunch of other media groups. But I actually had a job offer from them. And I guess what happens is once you're like doing that circuit of like internships, you meet other people. I ended up meeting somebody who was working for BMG. And they basically called me in one day and said, listen, this is not sports, it's music, but we'd love to have you if you're interested. And in my belief is certain traits, they transfer, right? Like you can pivot. If you have certain like tactical traits, you can pivot that into different industries, right? It's really about having like developing those traits or having those traits. Like if you're a good salesperson, which I think I'm okay, you can sell a widget just as well as you can sell a house if you have the capacity for that ability, right?
I agree.
So yeah, and that's basically what I did. I just basically like I pivoted from knowing sports, and by the way, I didn't know that much about that either. But you learn. If you want something bad enough, you make it happen. So you study a lot, you educate yourself, you talk to people who are in the know, and you like knowledge is power. I just got as much knowledge as possible, and it just ricocheted into the next area. And I loved it. And I tell you, like, I would, if it wasn't for the fitness stuff, I would actually still be doing that if it wasn't so different now. The labels, how the music world works, it's very, very different, obviously, than it was back then, right? Like with iTunes now, and you know, like at the time, like it was a different world.
Were you?
Is that where you got out of it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, were you a part of the?
So yeah. So what happened was I was doing a lot of marketing for these labels. So my job really at the time was basically I was a liaison between like a Tower Records, HMV, all those, you know, those big conglomerates, and the talent. And my job was really to kind of create programs and initiatives to help support the album dropping, right? So that was really like my area, and I was doing that, and I kind of worked up the chains of that, and then I got a couple different job offers to move to LA. So one of them, the one I took actually was, do you guys know Immortal Records? So all these, so you have these big record labels, right? And they're all mostly like distributors. Like BMG is like a distribution company that has a lot of other subsidiaries underneath them.
Okay.
So with me, when I was at BMG, there was underneath them, there's RCA, Arista.
Interscope or
Interscope's a different label. Yeah. So under BMG, you have, like I said, you have RCA, Arista, Jive, and at the time it was like it was so massive. You had every top, you know, you had Usher to Britney to Christina Aguilera to Dave Matthews to Whitney Houston. I mean, like, because everyone's on a subsidiary, and then you have BMG who distributes all your shit basically. So basically then I moved to Sony, and then with Sony, they had one of their labels that they had a relationship with was called Immortal, and it's Immortal Records, which at the time they had it was hardcore music, which is not my area, but again, you can just pivot. It was Slipknot, Incubus, you know, it's a whole different thing. And
good stuff.
And yeah, well, depends on who you ask, but yeah. And
I digged it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's some of it I really like too. And so I moved out to LA, and that was my new job. And it was like that was a whole different world altogether. And the only reason why I left was I got a promotion to oversee how it was working. That's when they had this technology where they're going to promote things online, and I didn't understand all of it, and it was like a proprietary technology, and they were going to use it to market their bands, and it was when Napster was happening and all sorts. I'm like, this is not my jam. So I'm like, I'm gonna quit. So I quit the job, and now this is what happened was they were sponsoring me. So when you get sponsored, I'm Canadian, so you can only work for the company that sponsors you, and if you can't, then you're kind of screwed.
So you had nothing lined up. You just
nothing.
quit?
Nothing. But I had I knew me. I believed in me, and I knew that I would figure it out eventually.
You had a pretty good network at that point.
I didn't really have anyone in LA though. I was only in LA for maybe 8 months, 7 months, not even maybe. And it was changing so quickly. It was changing so quickly that when I quit, I was like, shit. Now I have nowhere to. They're my sponsor. How do I? You can't just start working. So that's when I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a trainer. So that's when I'm like, I'll become a personal trainer, and and once I get my first certification, I'll get a couple of clients on the side, and then I'll figure it out. I'll see where it's going to lead me.
Now hold on a second, because moving from what you were doing in music, which I'm assuming it's a high position, making a lot of money.
I was making a lot of
I'm going to leave, and I'm just going to go get into fitness. It sounds like you were burnt out with that whole space.
I was burnt. Well, it wasn't that I was burnt out. I just didn't like it. I didn't like where it was. It wasn't so much about developing people as much as it was now a technology thing, right?
Okay.
Marketing and online, and it was a whole different space that I had zero interest in. It was just something I figured, you know what, I was making a lot of money. I had an office in Santa Monica. We had a crazy office in Santa Monica, overlooking the ocean. I can just ride my bike to work and ride back. But I was very young still. So I did all these fast tracks, but at the same time, it was I felt confident that I would figure it out. Like I figure if I don't do it now, then when? Because it was changing. Like the writing was on the wall because of all the other elements, like the Napsters and this. It wasn't the same business. Budgets were really getting cut back. It was a different world. Everything was moving to online, and it was like labels didn't have the same type of cash. They were losing the cachet at that point a little bit. People were doing much more. It was like MySpace and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay. So I literally just quit. I got like my first certification. And I'm like, what am I going to do now?
Now, was this in Canada? Did you have to go back?
No. I was staying in LA.
Oh, okay.
But I had the reason why I became a trainer was because there was no other way for me to make money.
Got it.
Because I didn't have a visa. So it would be like basically someone paying me like, cash if I got, when I had a client or something. So basically, so what I did was I got my certification. I had one client or two, I think my boyfriend at the time, like I think his mother like gave me some, because she felt bad for me. She's like, you can train my husband, my new husband. So I was like training her husband or something like that. And then I'm like, this is kind of not really economically feasible for me. So I'm like, one thing I know is record labels, and I know how marketing budgets work, even though they were much leaner than they were maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I still know how to like finagle around that marketing budget. So then I went to the head of MCA Universal, where I had a relationship with them. And I basically like created a job for myself on his label, but now not as a marketing person for the label, but now as a label trainer. So I basically came back to the music world, but I came back as a personal trainer, not as a marketing person. So now I had a background in like, I had my certification, and I naturally, like I said, was always very active and I was always fit, and I was always very interested in that stuff. So it came more, I was educated on it also. And when you have a passion for something, I think you always are better at doing the job versus like just doing it for the money. So now I had a passion for it. I had my certification. I already knew how the music world kind of worked, and I know how to deal with the talent and So I basically like created a position for myself where then now I'm training young talent when they're signing them on for when they're doing a music video or when they're going on tour. And that's how I started that's to answer your very long-winded way of answering your question, Sal. That's how I ended up in the fitness space. Was I literally left one industry, went to get some education with fitness, and then went back into the music world, and then I started as a label trainer. And that one client he gave me mushroomed into a whole other laundry list of other clients. And then you do well with one label. I got another contract with Interscope and Def Jam.
Were you the first to do this in the music space? Yeah, create sort of like this corporate fitness environment?
I can't speak on that, but I will say that at the time that I didn't know anyone else who was doing it. And all this, what happened was, funnily enough, I'm only one person. So then I had to hire with all these labels I had working, I would work with, and all these, pop stars and talent. I was only one person, so I had to now hire trainers underneath me to like work for me. So then I would outsource a bunch of trainers to work for me, and then go on tour and do all these things. That's kind of how the whole like celebrity trainer thing would happen. I always signed. I was never a sycophant or starfucker. I don't really care if you're famous or not. And maybe that's kind of why it worked a little bit for me, because I was always, but if the person's a good person, a nice person, I'll work with them. I didn't really care who you were. But a lot of the people I worked with initially started off like that, and then they got a taste for for fame, because they're now riding the coattails of someone who's famous, and then they use that to kind of build their own brand or their own company, and they became like a celebrity trainer. And then everyone, if you train this person, you're a celebrity trainer. You train that one, you're a celebrity, which is nonsense if you ask me. But anyway, so I had that was a tangent, but yes.
Anybody that we know that you trained?
I trained a lot of people. Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah. How about your? I'm sure he's got a ton, right? If you did record labels, especially those record labels, I'm sure you've had a ton of famous people. How about your least favorite and your favorite that you've trained?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. My favorite, I didn't like Christina Aguilera.
Oh, you didn't like her?
No. I shouldn't even say that.
Why not? Fuck it.
I
Too
don't
much
like
of a
her,
diva
I don't
or
like.
what?
This is
I just
Mind
don't
Pump
like-
Raw Truth. We just keep
I don't
it
like
real.
her personality. I just think that she's, I think she's affected. I don't think that she's. I just think she's affected, entitled, and I think those are really terrible qualities in anybody.
I would think that's kind of common in like the artist type of world.
famous space.
Normally what happens, at least in my small experience of famous people and artists and athletes, is you tend to lack in other aspects of life. You're hyper focused in this one area.
Right.
You're super talented, and so then you're dysfunctional as fuck on the other
You
side.
are dysfunctional. I think that's something more different. I think what happens is when you're very good in one area, you definitely, a lot of times you lack in the other. Like these people, especially like when you're super, super like academic and smart, usually your social graces and you're a little bit socially off, or, what happens with that, I feel when you get famous too young and everyone's giving you everything and you become emotionally stunted because you don't have time to grow and like figure things out yourself. Everyone's doing everything for you. But you could still be a nice person, but just be a little bit fucked in that space.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Am I allowed to sneeze?
Yes, you are.
Should I just hold it in?
Put that right back in.
Yeah. You can sneeze, you can swear, you
Sorry.
can go wherever you want.
Oh, okay. I find with a lot of these people, their handlers are much worse. When people, I think hanger-oners are always a lot worse. And people are just looking for, I think celebrities and everybody are all just looking for the same thing, which is to connect to people and to get to be understood and related. And I think a lot of times what happens when the more famous you are, people act weird around you. So therefore you act weird around them. And it's an uncomfortable back and forth awkwardness, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're all human, and we just, like I said, want to just connect and be treated a certain way. But coupled with the fact that when you're young and you get famous and everyone just does everything for you and gives you everything, you are like have a screwed up way of looking at the world because your true experience is completely altered by just that. And then you couple onto that people then who treat you differently, everyone wants something from you, acts weird around you, feel like all of that makes you crazy and makes you different and makes you strange. But, that does, like I said, that doesn't mean necessarily they're bad people. There are people who are just like bitter, entitled, and nothing's ever enough. I mean, it just is what it is.
And she came off that way.
I just didn't. I mean, listen. Now I'm gonna. Who knows who's listening to this podcast? I'm gonna get like.
Probably her. She's a big fan of mine.
You never know. You know what could happen? What if her trainer's listening, or like?
There's a very good chance.
You never know.
You got your back. Don't worry.
I've always loved Britney, though. I think that she's a very sweet person.
Really?
And she's always like. I think that like.
I knew I had that. I knew I felt it.
You just made it. I'm so happy.
I think just because like that's a good example of someone who's emotionally maybe stunted because of that, and maybe not like. All who maybe not mentally kind of like not equipped for the fame, but her heart I feel is a good heart. She's got a good heart, and I think
she's misunderstood. I've been trying to tell people.
I'm not saying she's misunderstood. I'm just saying if you look at her mannerisms and behavior, even today in today's day, you could tell that she's like she has like an awkwardness, right? And she seems like she seemed like the same 15-year-old girl that she was when she was 15.
So she's your favorite?
I like her. I mean, a lot of my favorites actually were girls who had a trajectory that was supposed to skyrocket, and who were super talented, beautiful, they had the star power, the stage presence to be like massive, and then in this business. A lot of those people go unnoticed. Something happens. They get dropped from the label. Their album gets stalled. So many things on the back end of the business end happen where you don't even know who they are. They never even like get a chance to make it. And a couple of the people that I really like the most who had that, like you just don't know who they are, or not to the same level as like these other people.
When you were training the celebrities, are you on like a particular type of schedule? Do you have to meet them, or is it just you and them training together?
Well, it depends. I mean, back then, I never liked to be an hourly trainer because then you're capped at how much money you make, right? So I was always very business I think I always had like a business savviness, I think, to myself, right? That's why I went to school for it, whatever. But, I always think, okay, why would I cap myself at an hourly rate, right? When I can like make a retainer and make a monthly. So if you show up or you don't show up, I'm still making the money. Because a lot of times with trainers, and I'm a trainer, so I know my financial independence would depend on someone else's wobbly schedule and or want or not want to work out. So instead of like putting that pressure on myself, at the time, I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have a cap. So I'm going to charge a retainer and give them an X amount of training sessions. If they show up, great. And if they don't, well, that's fine too. Then I'm not going to be out because of their inability to show up.
I figured that out too. At some point, I was starting to charge people per month, but you get a certain amount that we agree upon ahead of time. And so like you not making it that's you. Like you're not showing up and my service is there and it's available to you. And that way it just makes everybody more professional about it and wanting to be there.
100%. I think and because also what you're doing is you're giving other people the accountability where they need it. Like you're paying for this, so be accountable to it. So I think a lot of times when you take that, you give them that pain, quote unquote, more times than not, they'll show up because they're paying for it. But it's different when an individual pays for something versus a company or a label, right? Because when it's your own money, you feel it way more, right? Than versus like a company, because you feel it's a company. But a lot of times in that respect, when it was dealing with labels or what have you, the labels pay for it. They weren't paying at the time. The labels paid for that. Depending, it's interesting. I find that like the more money you have, the more success you have, the less you pay for, right? And
we literally just talked about this yesterday.
It's crazy.
It's completely it's unbelievable. Like the people who need it the most in life, like you have to pay for everything, get nickel and dime for everything, and the people who need it the least
get everything free.
Get everything free. You should see some of these people's places where I've been. This room times 10. Just on like swag and shit sent to them. And it doesn't even get opened because you don't even have enough people working for you to give it away to. Like it's absolutely, it was always such a, it always bothered me that like people who like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I've heard it explained in a particular way that makes sense to me. And so it's kind of like this, like if you venture out and take a risk and try and start a business, and you try to get a loan from people and you say, I'd like some money because I want to start this business, and maybe nobody wants to give you money except for maybe your parents. Your parents are like, okay, we know you. We'll give you some money.
We know you.
Yeah, we'll give you some money. So they give you some money, you start the business, and then it succeeds.
Right.
Now you go out to get more money, and you can show, and people see like, oh, you succeeded. We'll give you more money. And the more you succeed, the more people trust you to give you things, the more you're viewed as somebody who is successful. And the opposite is true. When you go down the hill and you start to fuck up, people jump ship very, very quickly. Once you start to show people, that's what it is. Like when you're successful, part of it is people think that there's something in it for them as well. But when you're successful, more people are willing to give you more. And when you're not successful and doing very poorly, less people are willing to.
It's true though. It's funny that it works that way.
It does. I mean, what I find interesting though, because people are attracted to success overall, is what you're trying to say, right? Like people want to be around winners, right? It makes them feel like they're successful. It's like people want to be around rich people. People want to be around because it's or celebrities or famous people, because there's like a notion or a psychological thing in your brain that you think if I'm around it, then that means I'm that person, right? Which is kind of like, I don't know, silly in a way, right? Because then you're not on your own merit. You're just on someone. You're basically riding the coattails of someone else.
Sure.
But I always found that very fascinating. You're right. Like I also found though, like the more successful, if more like for investors or what have you. You're right. It's always easier to get money and more money once you're successful,
once you already have it.
Versus like when you're trying and you need it the most and struggling the most, no one wants to give you anything, not even a penny.
It's an ancient. There's an ancient understanding. What's that quote? To those who have everything, all will be given, and to those who have nothing, all will be taken. It's like that's in the Bible, I believe, right?
It's true though, right?
It's an ancient quote, but it's very, very true, and that's why the road to success tends to be a hockey stick, where you become more and more successful and it happens much faster. And the decline is the same thing. When you see people start to hit rock bottom, that shit accelerates very, very quickly.
100%. I agree with that.
You've got
the hockey puck. I mean, the hockey stick, because I'm Canadian. I like that.
I mean, at this point, it sounds like you're building yourself a very successful business now. Do you keep it going? How long do you ride this and stay in this space?
Oh, that's interesting. So I did that for many years. Okay, I did get burnt out on all that. I mean, at the time, what I did was I was very busy, but it was exhausting. It was physically exhausting and taxing.
It takes a lot of energy to train people.
It was. I found it to be. I think people underestimate a lot of times how physically and emotionally exhausting it is, because you have to be on all the time, physically, and also the pressure of being like looking a certain way, because there's this thing in because at the time, and I'll go back to it, I had, because of like who I was training and everything else, just how we have social media now, right? And we have all these, and it was different, but you have, but still the same, like Nike and all these other companies, you become an ambassador. They give you a lot of free stuff because they want you to basically promote it to your clients or be seen wearing it. And so there's that whole thing. So I had a bunch of endorsement deals back at the time. And so I had pressure to look a certain way, to be a certain way, and it was like emotionally exhausting, because you have to be there for somebody mentally too, because you become like their therapist in a way. And it was like it was very, very tiring. So I got burnt out, and you'll like this a little bit, Sal, I think, because I left the fitness business for a little bit and I became a media trainer. So then I completely pivoted again.
Wait, a what? A media trainer?
Yes.
So explain that.
So I was doing this for years, and then my mentor, the first guy who gave me my job as a trainer in the music world at MCA Universal, I was working my ass off, and then also managing other people is exhausting too, right? Because it's very difficult. I after a few years, 4 years, whatever, 5 years, I went to him and I'm like, this is I'm really tired. He's like, well, I don't know, why don't you just quit this? He's like, I have a friend. He's like, I have this friend who lives in Washington. He has a media training company, and he's looking to open up the LA office, or looking for someone to take over the LA office, and I think you'd be great. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean a media office? What do you mean media trainer? What are you talking about? He's like, you should meet with him. He's a friend from, they both went to Harvard or Penn or somewhere together. He's like, he's a friend from Harvard or Penn, Wharton. They went to Wharton. Just meet with him. He's coming to LA, see what he has to say. So I met with this guy, and he basically was telling me that the job is to train celebrities and high-level corporate executives like CEOs, CFOs, COOs, C-level executives, for when there's an issue in the company or they need to talk to the media, because there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it, right? So when there's a crisis, kind of like crisis management.
Kind of like a PR? Is that what I mean?
It's kind of like it's a form. So it's under the PR umbrella.
Okay.
But it's crisis management firms usually hire media trainers to train high-level executives or celebrities to be a certain way when they speak to the media, to give off.
So random.
They don't fuck up, right?
So yeah. So basically, I met with this guy, and this guy, these people are buttoned up as fuck. They're not wearing ripped jeans and running shoes like I would every day, and come from the music world, basically hanging out with Britney Spears. You know what I mean? They're super serious. They're usually anchors from CNN or people who have a very high very big journalist, they were journalists prior to being a media trainer.
Okay.
So anyway, I met with him. I walk away from that meeting. I'm like, there's no way that I'm doing this job. First of all, he's telling me that I have to wear a suit every day to work. And I was like, fuck, there's no way I'm going to. So I left the job. I left the interview, and I went to call Clyde. His name's Clyde. And I'm like, there's no way, Clyde, I'm going to be able to do that job. And he's like, you can do it, Jennifer. He's like, don't. He's like, come on, look what you've done. And he kind of reiterated kind of what I was just telling you about my kind of my evolution of my my life, basically career-wise, professional-wise. He's like, what's the worst that can happen? You don't like it? Then you'll figure it out again. So I was like, all right. So I call up this guy. His name's Andy Gilman, and his company's called Comcore Consulting, and he hired me. And I basically said, I'll take the job. And I said, on the one condition, I don't have to wear a suit. And he's like, well, I guess it's LA, because he lived in Washington. He's like, I guess that's fine. And so I took the job and I became a media trainer, and I basically grew the LA office, and I had I did a lot of big business for a good 2-3 years until I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. But I had clients like eBay, so Meg Whitman at the time, again, this is a long time ago, man. eBay, all the video game companies. So like Activision, there was, who was it? Activision I had. What was that one?
Esports?
EA Sports.
Yeah, EA, yeah. All of them. And so I did that for a couple of years.
And how did you learn how to do that then at that?
He
You had
trained
no
me.
experience. Okay.
They trained me. And honestly, what I found was there were modules, like certain modules that you kind of teach people. And it really was about being a good salesperson to get the business. And then you kind of like follow a certain template. And then you're good. But he was excellent. Like this guy, Andy Gilman, is an amazing media trainer. I mean, he still to this day is probably one of the top ones in the country world. He has major, like he does everything from like all the White House stuff to, when Johnson & Johnson had like a tampering with the Tylenol thing. I mean, big ones. And he trained me, and we had a bunch of other amazing people. But it was all about like how to sit. It's like body language is a big one, right? Like if you're sitting and your arms are crossed, you're being you're basically very standoffish. If you're kind of more like open, you got to, and there's what they taught me, just if anyone wants to know, is that it's all about having landing points, right? So everybody walks into an interview and you have to have 3 things that you want to get across, right? So if you're like a high-level CEO or a celebrity, you're usually doing these interviews because there's something that you have to like get across to your audience, right. Or else you wouldn't be doing it.
Like you're confident, this is a powerful, that like that.
Well, no, I mean points. So like people don't really want to do interviews at that level unless they have something to promote or talk about that's been like kind of like
a big deal.
That's kind of like either like a stock dropped or there was like an issue with a product or someone's promoting a new album or a book. There's ways there's 3 things. So no matter what no matter what the question is, there's a way to get to that landing point, right? So that's why you have 3, because if you ask me a question, like ask me anything.
What's your favorite highlight for your hair, coloring your hair?
Yeah.
Well, what I really love is I always love this like light brown blonde, and what I found within my last book, it really came out really nicely when it was in photos.
Transition to the book.
So you have like a place that you transition to the 3 places depending what it is, right? So and then you, no matter what they ask you, like you always land on those 3 things, and that. You want to make sure you're not looking left, you're not looking right. Like there's a certain like trick, like cheat sheet, right?
Right.
And if you study it and train it, it's number one, that's important. And then if you like your trainer and that you trust that trainer, like person basically training you, the chances of you succeeding are very high. So that's like when people like have bad eye contact, right? It comes across probably 80 to 90% worse than you actually think that person feels. Like if I don't look at you, like it inside, like you're kind of like, I come across awkward to you and you might not like me as much. But if I was like super engaged and looking at you and smiling
automatically I receive you more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then if I'm open, if I'm like staying like this versus open and happy looking, it's like it gives off on a whole different thing. So that's what I learned.
So 2-3 years of that, got bored with that.
Okay, and then yes, and then I didn't get bored. But it wasn't
your purpose.
It wasn't my thing. Like I liked it, and I needed a break. And then I went back into the fitness space, and then that's when I built No Gym Required. So what happened was, I moved back to Canada for a couple of years. And when I moved back to Canada, I started to rebuild my fitness stuff again. And I got a deal with La Senza, which is like the equivalent to Victoria's Secret. La Senza is like the Victoria's Secret of Canada and the UK. And when I did a deal with them to try to rebuild my name or have like some kind of like presence, when I did all these like billboard campaigns with them, part of the deal was that in every billboard, I would write my name on the billboards so people would not just think of me as like, oh, there's a picture of a girl wearing a sports bra, but like, oh, her name, that girl's Jennifer Cohen wearing, that. So like,
so you modeled for them.
I was like I was a spokesperson, which meant like, it was more, I did campaigns for them. So I would say more like a model. Okay. But then it would be everywhere. So people would always, it was all over everywhere. It was like.
Now, did you negotiate that to put your name on there? Oh, you did?
I did.
That was smart.
So I'm like, I don't want to just be like a model for like, for some clothes. If I'm going to do this, there has to be a purpose behind it. So I'm going to write my name on it. So when people would drive by, subliminally, they'll see my name and they'll remember it. So that would help me, again, to rebuild. And how I got my first book deal, I kid you not, in Canada, Key Porter was my book publisher. The publisher of my book deal would look at that poster out of his office every day and saw my name every day.
Wow, that's great.
And
how did you make that connection?
He told me.
Yeah, he told you.
Yeah. So I at the time, I did that. And then I did a lot of other stuff around. I started training people again. I started getting my name in the press a lot. I started building like small little things like how to get kind of like how to be fit at home, how to be fit when you go traveling. And so when I got my book deal, I named the book No Gym Required to kind of start building my own brand.
Now, when you're doing this, are you using your connections? Are you doing a lot of stuff for free to get, because you're saying, again, a lot of really cool stuff.
I did a lot of stuff for free.
Okay, I think that's a good point to make that, because I assume that with your tenacity that you don't go, oh, how much am I going to get for doing this? You're like, this is important for me to do. So.
Right. So I think what's important to point out is that you can't be short-term greedy, right? Because when you're short-term greedy, when you do that, the long-term success always falters a little bit, right? Like I always looked a little bit further into the future, and then thought, okay, to get from point A to point D, I got to do B and C, right?
Right.
So how do I do that?
Right.
So I was never someone, like I would do a lot of stuff for free.
Can you think of an example of like a time where most people probably would have wanted money to do that, and you're like, I'd rather not take the money for the long-term gain?
Okay, so I did La Senza campaign for free.
Oh, you did?
If they wrote my name on the poster.
See, that's fucking brilliant. Yeah. That to me is so smart. Instead of just, and most kids would make the decision. I see this happen with even like supplement companies. Like they just want to be affiliated with this big company. Right. Makes them feel popular and cool. Right. To say, oh, look, I'm on a billboard, I'm famous.
Right.
Where you're like, fuck it, don't pay me, but put my name on there.
100%. Because any Joe Schmo can be on a poster, right? If you're hot, right? Like if you ever got it's kind of sad, but like if you're like a good looking girl, they'll put it. I mean, anyone can get on if you're good looking and you have the right body type, whatever they're looking for, right? But very few people would be like, how do you distinguish yourself from that crowd, right? Like in the masses, right? You have to have if you're not like Giselle, how are you supposed to like have a name for yourself?
Right.
So then at least if like I said, keep your money, but just make sure my name is very, very well, it's big enough that people can see it, and it's on every single piece of billboard. And I'll tell you what happened. There's a story behind it too.
Excellent.
This is gonna be like a 6 hour.
Always are.
Don't worry about it.
This is gonna be like a 6 hour podcast.
Yeah, it's all good. Good stories.
So I'm not gonna name I did I did a big campaign where it wasn't supposed to be as big as it was, and they used it as like their massive campaign, and it was everywhere. It was in every magazine. It was in every country internationally. It became like an entire, like, it was like the very, very famous picture. And I had no one knew it was me because I was looking down, and people thought it was me because it looked like me. And I had I had like a Star of David that everyone knew. So people who knew me knew it, but and I got, Not only did I got barely any money for it, but I got no recognition for it. And so it didn't really help me at all, right? So I learned I learned from my mistake that I don't want that to happen again. And number two, like I said, if I'm going to be doing something, I wanted to do something where there would be some kind of visibility where I can leverage that into a bigger opportunity. Because the point of just doing an ad for doing an ad, yeah, it's fine. But how does that help in the long run? That's short term. There's no long term gain to me.
What a great lesson for today's Insta celebrities that you have, like especially these guys and girls posting half naked pictures of themselves, getting all these followers, and there's no real value. There's no connection. They got 500,000 followers and nothing. They can't make any money off of it. They don't build any brand. There's no authority.
Some actually do make a lot of money off of it, which bothers me even more because these people who have zero ability, have zero knowledge, zero education on what they're promoting are being super negligent with like the public, because people look at someone and think because they have a nice ass that they know what they're talking about.
That's short term, though. I think we're going to see that bubble burst.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope so.
I mean, think about it. We're
harmful.
Those of us have been doing this for a very long time. I mean, Instagram is fairly new to us still, and so
that's true.
There is this. I mean, I think it's starting to come out more and more, this whole facade of how many people, and there's more people talking about this, how we present only the best versions of ourselves.
Right.
And, people are photoshopping and they're getting in shape one time and and then using those photos
for followers.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff
so
going on.
All this stuff is starting to surface. And so I think these kids that have got 1 million and they're flipping shitty programs and they're making a bunch of money right now and buying up Lamborghinis and showing all that shit, I think you're going to see that flip on its head in the next year.
And the average consumer,
I hope so.
I think so, especially because when I look at the average consumer, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. The average consumer today is actually more educated than they used to be. They're a little bit smarter. I mean, back when I first became a trainer, I used to have to really convince women just to lift weights. Like, no, you're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger tomorrow. Today, I don't have to convince them as much.
Right.
They're the average consumer knows a lot more, and I think it's because of the so much more information, but there is a lot of that crap out there.
I also think that I agree with you that the average consumer definitely is much more knowledgeable than they used to be, for sure. However, I also think the average consumer is extremely confused because they have too much knowledge over a lot. They have a little knowledge over with a lot of things,
right.
And like they can't decipher now. Like,
information overload.
It's a total, and like a little information is very dangerous, right? Because that's when you make bad decisions, right? Because then they know a little bit about the paleo diet, a little bit about keto, a little bit about weights, a little bit about this, and so like they get nowhere fast because they're like, okay, they're saying everything is contradicting each other a little bit. And I think that's what's really, it could be very, very, it could be very confusing, and then you don't get any results or anything else. I would think the best thing to do is like pick a few places where you trust and like the sources and follow what they say. But it's hard, right? Because with social media and with everything else, there's information overload. And like I said, a little information can be very dangerous.
Well, that's exactly how Mind Pump exists and why it's successful. Is that's real? We really try to be the filter for the fitness industry. We're not trying to say we're the smartest guys or we have all the answers or we're always right, but we do have enough experience. We are smart enough to be able to help the average person disseminate the information that's coming from the masses so they can then make a better educated decision.
We're also in a situation with so much information, like you're saying, where there's lots of information but not a lot of wisdom. And I learned this as probably took me I'd say maybe 7 or 8 years as a trainer, where I learned that, if I had a client sit in front of me, in the beginning when I first started training people, I'd give them everything. Like, here's your meal plan, do your cardio, here's your workout. I threw everything but the kitchen sink at them.
Right.
And I had short-term success, but long-term people would fall off and they wouldn't do very well. I learned later on that I was much more effective if I could just get one thing to be changed fundamentally, stick with that, and then add something else to it. So it's a longer process. But then I had clients that would work with me for 10, 12, 15 years
right.
who had long-term success. So I think information is plentiful. The wisdom isn't so much. And so you get a lot of this, like this shotgun approach of, like you said, like keto diet does this, paleo diet, and people are sitting there going, okay, now what about me, and how does this work with my lifestyle, and what about the individual variants and how my body reacts and responds? And I'm not even listening to my body anymore. Even though that I've had people message me who are like, oh, I heard this podcast on ketogenic diets and I heard it was great, and I've been doing it for 3 months, and I'm so constipated I'm going to the bathroom once a week, and I'm like, listen to your body, it's not working for you.
Right.
Probably not good.
Exactly.
Yeah, very basic, start with there.
Well, I think common sense isn't so common.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the issues, right? Because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for somebody else, and nobody wants to kind of like this is what happens with me when I do a lot of these talks in LA, and people always say to me, what's the best, fill in the blank. What's the best exercise? What's the best food to do? And it's like, I always have to say to people, the best is whatever, like for exercise, is the one that you're actually going to do, right? If I say boxing and you hate boxing, you're never going to do it, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But like nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear what's that magic pill? What's that magic thing? Because we all have we're losing the ability to have like concentration for more than 5 seconds at a time. And so what happens is it's like the next best thing. What's the next best thing? Here, what is? And whenever I tell people, it's really unfortunately, it's like not very sexy or glamorous, but the basics work the best. Like the basic exercises work the best. The basic, like don't eat processed food, just, eat clean. And they get bored. They're like, "Oh, that's what you're going to tell me? All right, off to the next one. Where can I go? Who can I follow that will show me something?
Berry? Yeah. Who's got it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's the new acai, whatever? Right. But it's true. Like it is knowing your body and knowing you and having some self-awareness to that and common sense. And knowing what, and kind of like a little bit of trial and an error. And then once you find something that works, just do that, And
our industry's also done such a terrible job at promoting the right things in many instances. We talked about resistance training, which is a big one. For a long time, it's been cardio that's been promoted, crazy.
I agree.
I think in the context of modern life, like lifting weights is what's going to give you a faster metabolism, which makes it easier to live in a day and age where food is everywhere.
Absolutely. What's interesting? It's like exercise to me keeps you healthy. You're right. It's good for your cardiovascular health. But to think that exercise alone will help you with fat loss, with everything else, is such a myth to me, right? People are like, if I just... No, because the reality is it is the 80-20 rule. Like I think 80% of it is what you eat is your diet, right? If you want to look quote unquote a certain way, you have to like have a calorie deficit, in my opinion, to what it is, right? It's, with resistance training versus cardio, resistance training is what builds lean muscle mass, right? We all know that, right? Which then helps with your metabolism, which helps you burn calories. But girls especially, do an overload of cardio, which actually burns all their muscle, which makes it harder for them to. But it's all of this stuff is more behavioral and psychological than anything else.
And so when you wrote that, what was the first book that you wrote again?
No Gym Required.
No Gym Required. Right. How did that succeed when it came out? Did it do well?
It did well. It did very well. I mean, the thing is, the whole purpose behind it was to give people easy, simple solutions to be healthier and fit. It wasn't like, do this and you're going to have a six-pack. It's like you were saying, it's like changing, basically small wins equals big change. Like, don't focus so much on, if my point always has been in all my books is that if you are 5'2", right, and you are 5'2" and 130 pounds, why are you trying to be Giselle, who's like 6 feet? Like, try to work within, like, being realistic with what you have and maximizing on those assets, right? And like having goals, create realistic goals for yourself to win in the long term, right? And like don't go from 0 to 60, but like tweak your habits, because habits and rituals will make it a lifestyle over time, and that's what really gives you long-term success.
Now, you've written more than just that book.
Oh, yeah.
What did you follow that up with?
So that was very good question, Sal. I know. It was No Gym Required was my first book, and then Strong is the New Skinny was my second book. And this third book is called Badass Body Goals.
Okay. Now, Strong is the New Skinny did very well,
yeah,
right?
Very well.
You were selling a message of like building strength and getting muscle.
So the whole purpose, the message behind Strong is the New Skinny was not everybody could be skinny, but everybody could be strong. So work from a place of positivity and work to a goal that's actually achievable for everybody. Like, and I don't know if you agree with this, Sal. I follow you on Instagram.
Awesome.
But I feel that, I know you're going to say I don't agree, but I do believe that genetics plays a part in how people are physically. But you were talking about like a baseline I saw on one of your posts.
You're talking about my set point.
Yeah, your set point.
Yeah, some people might, I think, misunderstood what I was saying. That there's definitely a set point, right? We all have our genetic basis from where we should be, but the problem is they've used that to describe like an obesity set point.
Oh, yes.
Like, no, nobody has a set point that sets you at obese. Obviously Adam has a different, genetic makeup than Justin. But if Adam was 350 pounds and he's like, every time I get down to 200 pounds, my body wants to go up to 350, I think it's my genetic set point. No, that's your lifestyle set point. You were so used to the lifestyle that you had with your diet and your lack of activity that changing that fundamentally is very different. Anytime you change your life.
That's different. I agree with that. So, but I think that genetically, like we all have, like in No Gym Required, which is my first book, I talk a lot about, I break it down to like an ectomorph, an endomorph, a mesomorph.
The somatotypes.
Right. And then I don't talk so much about that in Strong or in Badass Body Goals, which is my current book. But I do say that genetically, that was my media training background right there.
Little plug.
Is that I think genetically, I know for myself, like I'm genetically, I have a certain body type that I can sway 7 pounds more or less. Mm-hmm. And if I try to get too beneath my genetic comfort zone, it's very, very hard for me to stay there. So like I find that's what I feel. Like I feel like you can only modify your genetics so much.
Sure. Now, right? where would you say do you sit, like the way you look right now, is this kind of how you like to maintain yourself?
No.
You look very fit, really?
Oh, thank you. I think this is the thing. I think as I get older, I'm a little bit, I'm not as hard on myself as I used to be. I used to be much more hard. I like strive for perfection more. Like I would really be hard on myself. I'd criticize myself if I didn't look a certain way. Now I'm kind of a little more like loosey-goosey about it. I have 2 kids now. So, do I find myself eating off their plate sometimes? Yes. More than I should? 100%. Does that hurt my like waistline? Mm-hmm. Like if I was single and had no kids, it would be way easier for me to be like physically on point all the time. Now with my with what my this is having like realistic like expectations, given the fact that I have 2 kids, my schedule is like kind of hectic all the time. I do the best I can, and I think I'm doing pretty well. But would I like to like sometimes I'm tighter than I am other times because of what I eat. Because sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, do you find that your relationship with exercise as you get older and nutrition becomes healthier in that sense? Because I was very similar in the sense when I was younger, I had to look a particular way and I was super anal about my nutrition and training. And now it's more, I enjoy it. It's more for my health. And I feel like I have a healthier relationship with it, even though I might not be as shredded all the time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like I feel like I do have a healthier relationship. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to give off like, am I still like in my head a little bit crazy and psychotic and hard on myself? Yes, I do. I'm not going to lie. But like that doesn't, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know how it translates sometimes, because I do let myself go more with what I'm eating diet. Like, I used to be very particular, like you said, about how you eat, but now I'm like, all right, so I'll have that piece of carrot cake, or okay, I'm going to have a couple of those French fries, things I would never know. But now it's like part of what I do, unless, and this is where I was going to say, like, I still exercise, I'm very consistent with my exercise, but I will say when my diet isn't on point, I will see it in my physically. It just happens. That's why
the irony in that though is that you say you see it in your physical, and you compare, or we compare ourselves to the best version of ourselves.
Right, exactly.
But in reality, you're probably in a healthier, better place. You really are. And to be able to have that flexibility, and what Sal was alluding to, that a relationship to be able to be okay with having a couple French fries, being able to have that carrot cake every now and then also still being consistent and not allowing that to spiral you down out of control like a lot of people.
Well, when you look at total health, and this was a mind-blowing thing for me, and it happened not that long ago. I've been doing this for a long time. It took me a long time to learn this. But when you look at total health, we as trainers, we tend to think of total health as the physical. We think of health as the physical, but it's not just the physical. It's the mental, it's the spiritual, it's the relationships you have with people around you and yourself. And, they even show this in studies. When they study, the world's blue zones, they find one of the things that all these blue zones have in common, this is where people live a long time, is they have good connections with people around them and good relationships.
Right.
That's one of the few things that they find in common with like the people in Okinawa and the people in Sardinia, for example, or the people in, the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. And so now when I look at the sphere as this total health thing, am I as shredded as I would have been in my 20s consistently? No, but am I overall healthier and happier? Definitely, because now I view it differently, and it's a different relationship.
Yeah, I that's exactly true. So, I mean, there are people I know, and I'm sure you guys all know these people, who they look like beautiful specimens, right? Like they are just perfect physically. But you know what? I know what it takes to be that way consistently, and it's not fun. Okay, let's just be real here for a moment.
It's not fun. It's extremely selfish.
It's extremely selfish. Usually, you have shitty personal relationships because everything is focused around
everything
you.
Burns around you.
Right. Everything is focuses on what you do, how you eat. You can't go out to restaurants because you have to eat so clean that you have to only prepare your own food. You won't socialize because, again, if you socialize, you're going to a restaurant, you're going to parties, you're going where there's alcohol. You won't do that. It's all about you and your schedule. It's a shitty a really shitty way to live. It's really hard to have personal relationships. It's really hard to connect to people. To me, I never went that far because being able to connect to people was always very, very high on my priority list. But I will tell you, I got pretty close sometimes, but I see people today and I'm you poor thing, because you're missing out on so much other things in life that are so much more important than you having an 8-pack right now. Mm-hmm. I had this couple come to my house for a little bit ago, and the guy is beyond perfect, right? He's a perfect specimen. And, I was and I always would look at him and be wow, look at this. And then you kind of peel the onion, the layers of that onion a little bit, and you see God, he won't eat. Exactly. And it stinks. Yeah. It does.
Kind of makes you cry.
And he's miserable because he's so everything is so regimented, and it's all about being so perfect that everything else in his life is lacking.
Oftentimes it's driven by extreme insecurities.
And this guy's very insecure. Exactly.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I've said this, all of us have said this millions of times. I've worked with thousands of clients, everyday people. The worst and most common food relationship issues and eating disorders ever are people who are in my field. Personal trainers, fitness, competitors, bikini competitors, bodybuilders. I would say the percentage of people in my space with an eating disorder is at least 2 or 3 times higher, if not more than you see in the average space. It's actually common.
Not only is it common, I think it's more common than not, because
absolutely
to get into this industry, to be in this industry, it's because you have some kind of psychosis about it for yourself, because you are there is a reason, you have some kind of insecurity about your physicality, or you want to maintain your physical, whatever it is. That's what drives you to be this. It's a nutritionist, it's a dietitian, it's a personal trainer. I think I see it I see almost 8 out of 10 times.
It's more rare to find the other one.
100%.
I agree with you. It's rarely ever do I meet somebody in this space that isn't battling either major insecurities still, or isn't dealing with some sort of poor food relationship or poor relationship with exercise.
100. Exactly. They're maybe they don't have an eating disorder, but they have disordered eating.
Right.
Which is still a disorder. Or they're exercise. They are, what do you call it? An exercise bulimic or whatever. They over exercise.
Oh yeah, it's a punishment. They go to the gym because they hate themselves, not because they love themselves.
Because I love exactly.
Yeah, and I've done that. I've been there before.
I've been there too.
I know what it feels like. It's funny, Jennifer, of all the things we communicate on the show, We talk about like how to work out, how to eat right, different exercise modalities. We talk about science, also. The message that gets us the most comments and the one that people thank us for the most is this one right here, where we teach people to treat themselves like they care about themselves. Because, and it's sad, it's a message nobody else is really communicating that much in our space, unfortunately. And I see a lot of people being affected, both men and women, but especially men. You see this a lot. Especially women. You see this a lot in young women.
Yeah.
And it's too bad.
It's terrible. I mean, that's a lot of why, like, it was important for me with Strong as a New Skinny to kind of really convey a very positive message to women, because I see it all the time, and I feel like we constantly are comparing ourselves to what we think in our brains that's perfect. And realistic, if you ever like just peel that onion on that person that you think is so perfect just because they look a certain way, I think you'd be sad, you'd be very disappointed what really goes on in their brain and their psyche. And it's one of those things where it's like, that's why you have to look inside yourself and look at fitness as a way to love yourself, as opposed to like how to, versus the opposite, like you were saying.
Excellent. Now I want to change gears for a second, because you said you have 2 kids.
Yes, I do.
How old are they?
5 and 3.
5 and 3.
Yeah.
Now let's talk for a second about how, because we get this question all the time. It's so difficult to get your kids, especially nowadays, to be active and to eat right. So let's talk about eating right first.
Okay.
Like, how do you manage like getting your kids to eat in a way that's healthy?
Because what I try to do is I think as a parent you have to lead by example, because a kid's not buying his own food. He's not going to Ralph's or Whole Foods and picking out his own stuff, right? He's looking at the parent to go buy the food for the kid or make the food for the kid. And as you lead, I'm extremely active. So like if I'm not working out, I'm walking everywhere when I can. In LA, it's like you don't walk. People like drive down the street, right? But I walk to as many places as I can, and I take my kids with me. I walk to the mall. I walk to the grocery store. And I'm very active, and my husband's very active. So what kids like to do is they like to mimic their parents, right? So because I'm active and my husband's active, then they want to be active. They want to do it. So like when I'm working out, my kid's downstairs trying to do a push-up or trying to like do a squat, or whatever else. And I show him the importance of it by not just telling them, right? Because at that age they won't understand, but you show them. That's on the activity part. And by the way, my kids are very active, and I think because they're probably hyperactive because of the parents. But if you think I have a lot of energy, you have no idea about my husband. But that's
you guys must have created a monster.
You have no idea.
A couple tornadoes.
My kid is so athletic; it is sick. Okay, anyway, I digress. And then on the food part, I'm making their food, so I try to make sure that I'm controlling a lot of what they eat so making sure they're eating well. I can't control, even at this age, when they're going to their friend's house or going to birthday parties, whatever else. But if I can like show them by example and cook for them that's healthy, then that's really, I hope that they would take that and like instill that into themselves. Because my message points are even with them, getting back to my media training days, are always very similar, which is to be strong, to be healthy, to have energy. You have to eat like this. You have to do this. So I think it's repetition and practice. Like anything else in life, it doesn't change just because.
Yeah, fully agree. I think it's like 85% of it is just how you are in your house and how you are as
modeling it.
Modeling it, exactly.
The most important thing you can do, really.
Right.
Yeah, your kids don't they go? They follow you in your little home gym and lift the kettlebells and stuff.
Yeah,
Justin?
like my kid.
Justin.
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, I actually built the whole thing downstairs so they can climb, and I try to make it as fun and as inviting as possible. Just so it's not as structured, but at the same time, I know that they're not doing it enough at school, and it like irritates me. So
it's terrible. And now they're eliminating recess and all this stuff from schools by like 90%, which is absurd to me too. I don't understand why they would be doing this. It's like
because they could just medicate them. They'll just give them medication, have them sit still in class. Yeah. It's what the deal is.
Jennifer, have you ever watched the Prime series, The Marvelous Miss Maisel?
Of course, I love it.
Is that great or what?
Yeah. What made you think? What made you?
Well, you have a Jewish background. I don't know anybody that I don't have a personal friend of mine that comes from like a rich Jewish family. And my girl and I are a huge fan of the show. We've watched all the episodes. I absolutely love the show.
Oh, okay.
And so I told her, I was asking her, do you have any Jewish friends that come from a rich background like this? And she says, no, me either. I was like, I'm really curious that is this.
You mean rich monetarily or rich as in like a culturally rich?
Well, both, right?
Both.
The show
she's very rich.
Right,
yeah.
both.
I wasn't that rich, let me tell you. But anyway, go on.
But is your mom and dad kind of like that?
No. Because they come. It's very their background is very. She's very aristocratic in that way. Like New York wealth is very different than growing up in Winnipeg. Remember where I grew up?
Right, small town.
It was very much. I don't know how to translate the word Hamish to like very family oriented, very like jovial and like social, but not aristocratic. That comes from much more of a New York aristocratic kind of background, right? I have a lot of friends who came from that or live like that or did, but no, that's not how I grew up. But in some senses with like the mother, the father, like kind of like some of the nuanced behaviors is very similar, pushy, like pushy, some of those things, like kind of the guilt trips.
Oh, that's Italian parents.
It's Italian, but by the way, Italians and Jewish people are almost identical. Yeah. Oh, look at this. Hamish. The definition of Hamish is a Yiddish word that means friendly or homey.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Now we know.
Exactly. That's perfect.
Your personality kind of reminds me of her also. You've got that. She has that kind of energy.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
Good. That's good.
Oh, okay.
I mean, think about what she does in the show. Her tenacity. You're right. I feel like it's so. I'm so glad you've watched the show. Because I was like, you got to watch that.
That's a great show.
It's an excellent show.
It's a great show. Yeah. I love that.
So right now you're focusing on the new book that you're releasing, and then
I am, and I'm also starting my own podcast, Sal.
Awesome.
Yes, and I'm between two names still. Maybe you guys can help me.
Yeah, let's do it. What are the two names?
Okay, I'm having a really hard time. So, I was first going to do the name Warming Up, as in like warming up, and also like warming up, like what we're doing right now. Warming Up with Jen Cohen, and then people were like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And then I really love the name Goal Getters. Your goal getter. At first, like Go Getters, and that was taken. And then Goal Getters, kind of also. And then the other one was Jenspiration.
Interesting. So
let's figure it out right now.
Yeah, let's do it. I could see why all three of them have some appeal, but I'll say this. This is something that we did early on that I thought that now looking back was very smart of us. At the time, it was a bit of a gamble. A lot of times when people start a podcast or start media, they think I'm gonna name it something specific so that people know they can get fitness information here, for example.
Right.
We wanted to give ourselves a name that left it open. It's like Mind Pump could be fitness, but it could be a lot of other things.
Right.
You have the kind of personality and the background that you could go anywhere.
And you also get bored with things after about 3 years.
Who knows what you'd be talking about?
Idea.
I do.
I've been, my second husband.
I've been sitting here for 90 minutes. I do have an idea. So you don't want to pigeonhole yourself. Yeah, That's my advice to you for sure.
I'll be talking aerospace in like year 2022.
So maybe pick a name that can mean a lot.
I like Goal Getters.
Goal Getters does that.
Goal Getters allows a lot of flexibility for you. I like that.
Because I could see you doing stuff in fitness, but also interviewing people in other spaces.
Right. Well, the podcast it's funny you should say it. It's not going to be solely on fitness. It's going to be much more about inspiring people, kind of like a very big entrepreneurial slant, which about getting people to like practical, actionable like takeaways that someone, an audience person can take with them and use in their own life, like some kind of like 3 inspirational things or 3 practical things or a combination. And like really about the routine, the morning routines, the habits of these successful people who've created something with some form of mind-body element of what they do to be productive and to be on point. I mean, I opened it up to this talk I had, and everyone loved Jenspiration, and I was like on the fence between.
I don't like that, and I'll tell you why I don't like that.
Who said this? Oh, you.
I don't like that because you have such a big vision in almost everything that you do. And that really forces you to have to be the voice of that. What if what you're building ends up being humongous, which I imagine you're driving towards, and one day you want to step away from that but keep the business running?
Right.
That really forces you to have to be in that. That'd be like, and a lot of people I think make this mistake is they brand their company that they're trying to build around themselves, because a lot of people give that advice that if you want to market yourself. But one of the things that another thing that I thought we did really well was we knew that we didn't care about the fame as the business grew. None of us wanted to be in the limelight. In fact, we've pulled ourselves from the YouTube channel. We've actually pulled ourselves out of all of our own programs. We hired models and we did So we've actually, as the business continues to scale, we continue to remove ourselves from that so that we have this opportunity in 5 or 10 years to look at it and say, are you guys having fun still? Let's keep going. Or, hey, let's keep the business running and keep it moving, but let's pull ourselves out of it and keep it operating. And that won't be hard to do. Like, we have a friend right now, I'm watching Ben Greenfield, good buddy of ours, who built this big...
Ben Greenfield. I wanted to do his podcast.
Yeah, Ben's a great guy. Right? We'll make that introduction for sure. So Ben is, pivoting right now to Keon, and it's a really hard transition when you've built this empire around Ben Greenfield and this name, and then now you're building this whole other separate brand, Keon, and people to make that connection. So
you're right. This is why, though. I'll tell you something. Not to interrupt you, but because I did have an app. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No.
So I built an app.
And Weight Watchers bought it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it got acquired by Weight Watchers, and it was called Hot 5. So when I had my baby, and after Strong as a New second baby, and I finished Strong as a New Skinny, and I didn't want to travel as much, I built this app with these two dudes. It was very successful. Weight Watchers did acquire it a couple of years ago, and when I was away from everything, like, it was very confusing because people either knew me as my name, and then I was away for all these years, and so then it was like Hot 5 was the name of it. So no one even like put two and two together that I was Hot 5.
Right.
In fact, when let's get this, I used to be the spokesperson for Weight Watchers. I mean, legit, like, I would write their blog, I would write a column in their magazine.
Oh, wow.
I did 10 of their DVDs, fitness DVDs. I did a ton of stuff with Weight Watchers. And when they acquired Hot 5, they didn't even know that it was me behind it.
Oh, wow.
How crazy is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, I'm telling you, so, like, I understand what you're saying about that, but
I see what you're saying. You want to have your name there so that if you leave, you can come back, or it builds your brand.
Or I'm trying to, so that's what I'm saying. Like, is it better to, like, brand myself, because I'm always either doing something on the forefront, like in the front facing, then I leave and do the back facing, and then I go back in the front. Back,
well,
you know what I mean?
Well, to that point you just made, the question I would ask then is, would have Weight Watchers acquired it if the app was named after you?
No, but I think. No, you're right. But what I'm saying is, number one, the most important thing is having good content, right? Having really good guests, and the content should be always number one. Mm-hmm. But number two is, like, iTunes, and this is a question I will ask you, like, there's so many apps, so many podcasts. Like, how do you even get found? Like, I went on there and Goal Getter was taken. So it's like, now if I'm doing Goal Getters, are people going to be confused? Mm-hmm. Like, do I have to have my name in there so people are, maybe for the one person who wants to listen to it, they'll find it more easily.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I'm assuming you have a bit of a built-in audience because of your book. So you probably have an email list. So with iTunes, the first 8 weeks, if you perform well in comparison to other podcasts that have just started for the first 8 weeks, you'll get listed on their featured page, and that's a great way to get exposed.
Right.
So what I would do is I would get 5 to 10 episodes that you can drop, set it out to your audience, and boost your downloads so you get featured on iTunes.
With your network alone, you should be able to jump in that top right away, you'll be, and that alone will keep you going. And then if you follow through with what you just said, which is you're content driven and you're providing really good interviews, really good information, then it will absolutely.
Doing stuff like this is one of the best ways to get exposed to other podcast listeners.
Right.
So like our audience will then look for you, for example.
I hope so. That's why we got to figure out this name so they know what to look for.
We could also just have you back on the show.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's true, too. Yeah. But then you guys
this isn't your one and only chance right here to hit it out the park, We'll
go to your website.
Yeah. And we already figured this out, that you have all these buried stories you don't like to share.
I know. She's holding all the good ones
I gotta fucking pull out of you here.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, when I was hanging out with Keanu Reeves.
I know, right?
Okay, I have to ask though, did you run into him later on?
That's so funny. You should say that. You know what? I was just thinking about this, and I'm gonna reach out to him now.
I want you to.
Because I want to tell him, because if it wasn't for him helping me, giving me that self-esteem and self-confidence to go and barrel forward, who knows what would have happened, and I want to thank him.
Yeah.
He's not so easy to find, let me tell you. He's really not so easy to find.
You're telling me.
I gotta like really like dig deep and figure out how to do it, because
I would send the original video. I would say, if you have
who?
To him. Well,
the VHS?
Put it out there.
Yeah. I'll make a copy of it or something.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go to Costco when I get home.
I mean, think about that.
I'm gonna do it.
I would copy the tape and I would find a way to mail it to him.
Please do that and then report back to us.
With a thank you card.
But where do I send it?
So, there's got to be somebody who will get that. I would send it with a letter thanking him and telling him your story of what you've done with that, because I think that's a very powerful story, that moment catapulted you into what you've done today.
Sure. I should send him this podcast episode.
Send him this podcast.
We would love that even more.
To their PR person or whatever.
Maybe we'll come on together.
He already listened.
I'll film.
I was going to say, if anyone knows Keanu Reeves or has any contact to him, can they please reach out to you guys at Mind Pump, and then you guys will let me know.
Oh, great. Now
Absolutely.
my girl on the back end is going to hate you for that. She's like, I get about 400 emails, people claiming they know Keanu Reeves.
Exactly.
Oh,
awesome.
shit.
That's so funny.
This has been amazing.
Yeah.
This has been awesome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Does this mean it's... Well, by the way, should I plug my book, or what do I do?
We're going to plug all that.
We'll plug all that.
Okay.
Closer. Relax over there, closer. Don't worry. We're going to drive everybody to your business. We got you. We got you covered over here. And it won't be the last time we let you on the show.
Oh, you're hilarious.
We like you.
Yeah, you'll be back
Thank
on.
you.
And we're going to be on your show, right?
100, you promise?
Yeah, absolutely.
So does that mean that you come to LA, or do I have to come here with your whole setup here?
Well,
we can do either.
If you get a nicer setup, we'll come to you.
I don't
bring
know.
Keanu and Isaiah
nice.
Thomas and the whole gang.
I will. I'll bring Brittany for you.
Yes.
Isaiah for you.
I'll fly to LA for that for sure.
Yeah, I don't need a celebrity. I'm good.
Okay, good. See there, you and me, Sal.
Oh, you're so cool.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right on, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.